They say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and when it comes to Blazing Chrome, it's plain to see that the fine folks at indie studio JoyMasher have nothing but love for the Contra series. Featuring gritty and detailed sprites, screen-filling bosses, and fast and frantic gameplay, it's a near pixel-perfect homage to Konami's beloved run-and-gun franchise that would look right at home on the Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo. But while Blazing Chrome most certainly nails its 16-bit presentation, does it do enough to satisfy the combat-starved veterans of the Alien Wars? Well, soldier, lace up your combat boots and lock and load as we prepare to party like it's 1995. Blazing Chrome's story takes place 2 decades after an army of AI-controlled robots has beaten humanity nearly to extinction. You control either Mavra, a human resistance fighter, or Doyle, a repurposed robotic commando, as you attempt to put an end to the machine's tyrannical mechanical reign. Of course, the story isn't what's important here. The only thing that matters is kicking robot ass with extreme prejudice. Thankfully, this dynamic duo is more than up to the task. Controlling your commando feels great in Blazing Chrome. You can aim your weapon in 8 directions, much like the aforementioned Contra, and you even have a handy combat roll that's executed by pressing down and the jump button simultaneously that can get you out of tough situations. While you always have your trusty machine gun, as you blast your way through each stage, you'll collect more powerful weapons. These tools of the trade include an energy whip, which functions a lot like Simon Belmont's whip in Super Castlevania 4, a grenade launcher, which can blow waves of enemies to bits, and a slow-to-charge yet incredibly powerful laser beam that can reduce even the nastiest bosses to scrap metal. After you collect a weapon, it's added instantly to your inventory, and you can stockpile 1 of each type of weapon. However, if you die with any of these but the machine gun equipped, you'll lose it when you respawn. This made me frequently switch back to my default weapon type when the action got hot and heavy, so I wouldn't lose my more powerful weapons when I died. It's a feature that makes sense, though I have to admit it made me utilize the more exciting weapons less often than I wish I could have, because I didn't want to lose them before tackling any of Blazing Chrome's challenging bosses. In addition to these weapons, you'll find capsules throughout each stage, and these include options which award you various bonuses. These come in 3 varieties: Attack, which fires a steady stream of machine gun fire, doubling your firepower; Speed, which allows you to run faster, roll further, and even perform a double jump, which is super handy when reaching hidden items and extra lives; and lastly, Defense, which deploys 2 drones which can each absorb an attack before leaving you vulnerable. While all of these are handy, I found myself always going for the defense drones. This is because they effectively give you 2 additional lives, a must when it comes to some of the game's more punishing boss encounters. Blazing Chrome's campaign features 5 stages, 4 of which can be played in any order, and completing them will unlock the game's final area. They're all a blast to play and feature plenty of visual variety and new mechanics to help keep things exciting. The game's first stage is a war-ravaged city that's teeming with mutants and murderous robots. Honestly, it looks and feels lifted straight from Contra 3: The Alien Wars, and serves as a perfect introduction to Blazing Chrome's run-and-gun action. The second stage switches things up a bit. Here, you'll cruise atop a nimble hover bike. Seriously, what 90s-inspired game doesn't have hover bikes, as you pursue a speeding train? Honestly, it feels quite a bit like the surfing stage from Shinobi 3 on the Genesis, and enemies appear in the background before advancing to the foreground to ambush the player. The latter half of the stage is a frenzied fight atop a speeding locomotive before a daring battle atop the engine. The game's third stage takes place against the backdrop of a haunting desert. Sandworms pursue you constantly, while poor saps in the background struggle to avoid sinking to their deaths beneath the churning dunes. While the fourth and most challenging of the game's initial 4 stages begins with a marathon platforming section and ends with the player raiding a command tower that's bristling with gun emplacements and hordes of mutant monstrosities. While 5 stages admittedly isn't a lot, even by old school standards, the ones featured in Blazing Chrome are well designed and manage to keep things exciting. They even have frequent nods to other games of the 16-bit era that will surely please all of you old school gamers out there. For example, one mid-boss is a clear reference to the Pyramid Stage boss from Metal Slug 2 and X, as it chases you through a narrow shaft, firing massive beams of energy. Speaking of Metal Slug, you'll find several mechs over the course of the game with varying abilities that you can commandeer, much like the series' super vehicles. My favorite of these homages is a Space Harrier-style behind-the-back shooter segment. In it, you navigate through dangerous tunnels lined with turrets, narrow passages, and electric barriers. It's an exciting stage that showcases plenty of scaling sprites and cool pseudo-3D effects which, while impressive, look like they could have been entirely possible on the Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis. Again, I absolutely love the way JoyMasher managed to make the game feel like a real remnant of the 16-bit era. Blazing Chrome is, without question, the game we all deserve to play in 1994. When it comes to presentation, Blazing Chrome is a real treat. The game features gritty and detailed character and enemy sprites that are just oozing with personality. The animations are smooth and stylish, and the effects are flashy without feeling like they couldn't have been done on real 16-bit hardware. I especially love the copious amounts of parallax scrolling in the backgrounds, and the way enemies scale from the backgrounds to the foreground to ambush the player. It's really cool stuff, and I often had to stop and admire the little details before storming ahead to the next firefight. And, as you'd expect, the game runs without a hitch, even when dozens of enemies and bullets are on screen. The music and sound effects are also top-notch. Each gun sounds like it packs a satisfying punch, and the explosions feature plenty of bass to accompany the on-screen chaos. Each stage also features some pumping and often atmospheric music that fits the action perfectly and is sure to get your pulse pounding. To my surprise, the credits theme also features the work of retrowave sensation Christine, who also lent her talents to Friday the 13th the game. As I say, developer JoyMasher has clearly taken Blazing Chrome's modern retro aesthetic very seriously, and without a doubt, the game is all the better for it. With only 5 levels to blast your way through, Blazing Chrome is a pretty quick burn. However, once you beat the game, you do unlock a handful of bonuses, and they do manage to add some meat to the overall package. These extras include 2 new playable characters. One is a badass shinobi who handles a bit like Strider. He fights with a sword and can charge it up to unleash a deadly wave of energy. The other unlockable character is a tough-as-nails female marine who uses bare-knuckle tactics and a sonic boom-like attack to pummel her foes. Neither of these 2 characters can pick up new weapons, however, which makes them a bit better suited for advanced players. But man, they sure are fun to play as and bring their own unique and powerful tricks to the table. In addition to these new characters, beating the game also unlocks a thrilling boss rush mode. Here, you're thrown into an arena and forced to tackle each of the game's mid-bosses and big baddies consecutively. If that's not enough, beating the game also unlocks a mirror mode, which allows you to play through each of the game's stages backwards. Add to this a gut-punching hardcore mode, which pares down your lives and credits to the bare minimum while removing support capsules and saves, and you have a mode that should keep you coming back for more long after your initial playthrough. Without question, modern retro games have been a bit of a fad over the past few years. However, few studios have managed to do what JoyMasher has done with Blazing Chrome. That being said, if you're a fan of the run and gun genre, then there's no excuse. You need this modern day masterpiece in your life. Just buy it, you'll thank me later.